Welcome back to my Keep Up channel. Syrian refugee screaming in the name of Jesus Christ stabs a child in their pram in front of screaming mother as 4 kids aged 22 months to 3, including British girl, are knifed while holidaying at French resort before cops shoot and arrest him. A Syrian refugee screamed in the name of Jesus Christ as he repeatedly stabbed a toddler in his pram in front of his screaming mother in a frenzied attack at a French playground that saw 4 children knifed. The attacker, identified as Abdelmajid, 31, clinched onto a necklace with a crucifix on it before he launched his abominable rampage in a lakeside park in the town of Annecy, a tourist hotspot in southeastern France, at around 9:45 a.m. Distressing video shows the attacker running into the small playground and repeatedly stabbing a toddler in his pram while his screaming mother tries to protect him from the attack. Further dramatic footage shows the attacker, a recently divorced Syrian refugee who has declared himself a Christian, later being chased across the park by locals and cops before he was shot by a police officer and pinned to the ground. Horrified witnesses say mothers ran past them screaming "Run, run" in the aftermath of the frenzied attack, which President Emmanuel Macron has condemned as absolute cowardice. 4 children aged between 22 months and 3, including a British girl and 2 adults, were seriously injured in the attack. 2 of the young victims and 1 of the adults are now in a life-threatening condition at a nearby hospital. Witnesses said the knife man, who a local prosecutor said did not appear to have terrorist motives, had begun attacking the preschool children while they were playing at a small playground in a scene of utter carnage. They said he had launched his onslaught on the toddlers because they were easy targets. Witnesses said they heard the man, who was rejected for asylum in France 4 days before the attack, shouting before he began attacking the small children in the playground with a blade around 4 inches long. One of the injured children was in a stroller. Abdelmajid, who was recently divorced, had previously lived for 10 years in Sweden where he was granted refugee status in April, security sources and his ex-wife said. He called me around 4 months ago. He was living in a church, his ex-wife said on condition of anonymity, saying he had left Sweden because he had been unable to get Swedish nationality. He had applied for asylum in France but was rejected 4 days before launching his barbaric attack due to him already having refugee status in Sweden. Horrific video of the attack shows Abdelmajid carrying a knife and clenching a necklace around his neck, which reportedly had a crucifix on it. Wielding the knife, the Syrian refugee shouted in the name of Jesus Christ as he ran towards a screaming mother whose little boy is in a stroller before a local man hits the attacker with his rucksack and chases him away. But the knife man jumps into the playground again and runs towards the mother and her toddler. The woman screams and tries to protect her son with her body, but Abdelmajid quickly moves around her and stabs the little boy twice. The toddler can be seen screaming in pain as the mother and terrified parents scream for help as the attacker runs away again. But the carnage continues. Abdelmajid runs back towards the child in the pram and stabs him again in front of his horrified mother before he is chased away by a local man who throws his bag at him. Further video taken minutes after the stabbing shows the attacker being chased by locals across the park. Parents can be heard in the background screaming for help for their injured children. Soon afterwards, armed police arrived at the scene and chased the suspect before a shot is heard and the attacker falls to the ground before a desperate struggle with the cops. Abdelmajid was subdued and arrested for the attack that left 4 children and an adult seriously injured. The attacker was slightly injured by police and taken to hospital. A class of secondary school children witnessed the atrocity. They are now receiving counseling following the traumatic incident. Mathilde Fusat, 18, who was in a sports class at the school nearby said, "I saw a mother picking up a child from the ground." UK Foreign Secretary James cleverly confirmed that a British girl is among the injured. The Annecy prosecutor said another child who was injured was a Dutch national. Police sources told BFM TV that a 2-year-old boy and his sister, 3, are in a critical condition. A 2-year-old British girl and a 22-month-old German boy was also injured in the attack, according to C News. A 70-year-old man, who was sitting on a bench when the knife man launched his attack, was reportedly stabbed in the neck and rushed to hospital. Describing the attack, a witness who gave his name as Ferdinand told BFM TV, "He jumped, in the playground, started shouting and then went towards the strollers, repeatedly hitting the little ones with a knife. Mothers were crying, everybody was running," said George, another witness and owner of a nearby restaurant. Another witness, who asked not to be named, said, "The man was shouting in English and caused absolute panic when he started attacking the little ones. He wanted to hurt as many people as he could. He caused carnage. The young children were just easy targets." Another witness told Le Dauphin, "We saw a person attacking children playing games, small ones, obviously that was his target. After people tried to scare him, he walked away, and the police intervened." Former Liverpool footballer Anthony Le Tallec said he saw a group of people running at him before a mother shouted at him, "Run, run, there is someone who is stabbing everyone all along the lake. They are stabbing children, run, run." He continued, "I was so surprised, I continued, and then suddenly the guy appeared in front of me. Then I saw the police who were 10 meters behind him, but they hadn't managed to get him yet. He was so near to me, so I got out of the way." Le Tallec, who had been running in the park at the time of the attack, added, "He wanted to attack everyone. I moved away and he lunged at an old man and woman and stabbed the old man." Tallec claimed that police shot the suspect in front of him in order to subdue the attacker. He said, "I said to the police, shoot him, he is stabbing everyone. He attacked, once, twice, and then they started to shoot, they shot in front of me, at the person, he fell to the ground. After I continued on my way, then I saw in front of the lake, children on the ground, so very sad. But the police, the slowness, that's what I noticed, the slowness was incredible, the slowness to trigger something, shoot. The guy had the time to stab the dad twice. He spoke English. At the beginning, we all thought it was staged, but with the cries of people, we realized it was reality." A man told broadcaster BFM TV he saw first aiders working on little bodies, 3 or 4 years old, perhaps. "Mothers were crying, everybody was running," said George, owner of a nearby restaurant. An ice cream seller who works in the waterside park said he'd seen the attacker there several days earlier, looking out at the lake ringed by mountains. "I had already seen him, he had been sitting on a bench for 2 to 3 days, he told BFM TV. "He was looking at the lake like anyone else was looking at the lake," the witness said, but added the suspect was sitting with a trembling leg and a big black bag. France's Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, who traveled to Annecy, said Abdelmajid is a Syrian national who had been granted asylum in Sweden 10 years ago. At the time of his application, he stated he was a Syrian Christian. He had entered France legally, Borne said, and was carrying Swedish identity documents and a Swedish driving license. He was not known to security agencies and has no criminal or psychiatric record, Borne said. The local prosecutor leading the investigation said man's motives were unknown but did not appear to be terrorism-related. He is under investigation for attempted murder. Abdelmajid had applied for asylum in France in November last year, but police sources said his application was rejected 4 days ago on the grounds that he already had refugee status in Sweden. An investigating source said the attacker was a Syrian asylum seeker who has spent a lot of time in Annecy. He was in a park square when he started the attack at about 9:45 in the morning. He targeted children indiscriminately, and also wounded an adult. An investigating source said Abdelmajid is himself a married father of a 3-year-old girl, and a devout Christian. He married a Swedish woman, and they have a child together, said an investigating source. He entered France legally from Sweden at the end of last year. The source said Abdelmajid was a declared and devout Christian who carried a prayer book and a cross at the time of his arrest. It was claimed that the suspect and his ex-wife, who lived in Trollhättan, north of Gothenburg, separated 8 months ago and had not been in contact for 4 months. The pair had reportedly been training to be nurses. Verified pictures posted on social media showed Abdelmajid approaching the children wearing shorts, sunglasses, and a scarf around his head before he launched his attack. The knife man was arrested soon afterwards, following a brief struggle. Video shows two armed police officers and a man pinning the attacker down on the grass before he was taken away. Abdelmaseh H. was himself seriously wounded by police and was rushed to hospital along with his 5 victims. France's Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin tweeted, "Several people including children were injured by an individual armed with a knife in a square in Annecy. The individual was arrested thanks to the very rapid intervention of the police." Mr. Darmanin confirmed that 5 people were wounded, including 4 young children, 2 of whom are in intensive care. French President Emmanuel Macron tweeted, "Attack of absolute cowardice this morning in a park in Annecy. Children and an adult are between life and death. The nation is in shock. Our thoughts are with them as well as their families and the emergency services that mobilized." Prime Minister Elizabeth Bourne is now traveling to the scene of the attack, according to her aide. Local politician Antoine Armand said in a tweet that children were targeted in a playground in an abominable attack. He wrote, "We still know very little, but all my support for the victims, relatives, law enforcement and rescue." And François Astorg, the mayor of Annecy, said, "Appalling attack this morning on the Paquier Park in Annecy. All my thoughts to the victims and families." Politicians inside the National Assembly in Paris interrupted a debate to hold a minute of silence for the victims of the knife attack this morning. Several witnesses described Le Paquier Park as a usually tranquil place popular with tourists for its stunning views of Lake Annecy and the mountains. "It's a place where babysitters and parents take young children to play. I often see around 15 toddlers there in the morning, and the atmosphere is fantastic," said Johan, who works at an ice cream parlor just opposite the park. Eleanor Vincent, an American author who is on holiday in Annecy, told of her shock at seeing an emergency helicopter descending to the picturesque park. "As soon as I heard the sirens and saw police running, I knew something horrible was happening. I am in shock. It's a park where they take children out to walk," Vincent said. "Crowds stood in absolute silence, dumbfounded as the tragedy unfolded," she said. "As a parent who has lost a child, I know what these parents are experiencing. It's a horror beyond belief," Vincent added. France has been shocked by a number of violent incidents over the past few months, including the fatal stabbing last month of a nurse in the northern town of Reims. Also last month, a drunk driver accidentally killed 3 policemen. Macron has denounced what he calls a decivilization process in the country, while opposition lawmakers say his government has been too lax on law and order. "Nothing more abominable than to attack children," National Assembly Speaker Yael Braun-Pivet said on Twitter. Parliament observed a minute of silence to mark the incident. In recent years, France has suffered a series of traumatic attacks. In 2012, a Franco-Algerian Islamic extremist named Mohamed Merah killed 7 people, including 3 children and a rabbi at a Jewish school, during a shooting rampage in the southern city of Toulouse. Most recently, the beheading of a teacher in broad daylight in 2020 near his school in a Paris suburb by a radicalized Chechen refugee led to shock and grief, as well as a national debate about the influence of radical Islam in deprived areas of the country. Thursday's attack is likely to spur greater scrutiny of France's immigration and asylum policy, with right-wing politicians seizing on the suspected culprit's identity as a refugee. The investigation will determine what happened, but it seems like the culprit has the same profile that you see often in these attacks. The head of the right-wing Republicans Party, Eric Ciotti, told reporters at Parliament. "We need to draw conclusions without being naive, with strength and with a clear mind," he said. The leader of the far-right National Rally Party, Marine Le Pen, wrote that she had learned the news with dread and horror. Source: dailymail.co.uk. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.